What's up guys, XM360 here, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing another laser pointer for you guys, and this one is going to be the UKing ZQ-J12. So this one was sent out to me from Banggood.com to do a review on, and it comes in two different power models, a 1-watt model and a 3-watt model, and it's in the 638 nanometer red color, which is kind of like a reddish orange. It's a little more orange than the normal 650 nanometer color that you see a bit more often. So the 1-watt model goes for $90 on Banggood, and the 3-watt model sells for $135, and they both come with a charger and two 16340 rechargeable batteries. And this is the box right here, and their branding is this wolf logo, and I do like to see that they have their product branded here because a lot of the lasers that come out of China are unbranded and theirs is branded, so that's good. And I don't know if I just mentioned that yet, but this does ship from China, so you do have to wait a little bit longer on the shipping time, maybe closer to 2 to 3 weeks. I think I waited. Right opening the box here, there's like a little guarantee card. Half is in English, the other half is in what I'm going to guess is Chinese. And then a little instruction manual that also lists what it comes with. And it basically has some information about how the charger works and how you insert the batteries into the laser, and it appears to be just a general instruction sheet that they print out for several of their laser models, because this instruction sheet says that the laser takes an 18650 3.7 volt battery, when in reality this one takes a 16340. So this paper's not all that accurate, but some of the information probably does pertain to this laser. And although this includes two 16340 batteries, the laser itself actually just runs off of one, so you will have an extra battery that you can keep charged. The charger charges both of them at the same time, and this is just a cheap little charger that they include with tons of different Chinese lasers. I probably have about 4 or 5 of this exact charger sitting around. And what I find actually a little surprising right here is that these 16340 batteries that are included are actually UKing branded. They have the company logo right on them, and usually with these Chinese lasers they all pretty much have those cheap ultrafire batteries, and I'm not doubting that these aren't the same quality as those cheap ultrafire batteries, but they do have some special branding on them, which is nice, and it is a nice little touch compared to some of the other Chinese lasers I've bought in the past. Now the laser itself is actually pretty small, and it's all silver, full metal construction. Has a little label on here, but the label isn't very helpful because it has several options on it and none of them are crossed off, so it doesn't really give me any information on the laser. I would have to fill out this information myself, and maybe they do that for customs reasons so that customs doesn't know what power it is and doesn't confiscate it, but it's not that helpful for me. So Banggood.com lists the building material on this one as aluminum, and it definitely feels very solid in construction, solid metal. It feels very heavy and not like something cheap and cheesy. And it also lists it as waterproof IPX5, and I don't know what those ratings mean, but I figured I'd just mention that for you guys. It also lists the weight as 130 grams. So to insert the battery, you just kind of unscrew the laser at the halfway point, and while unscrewing it, you can see that there is a rubber O-ring in there, so that would support the claim that it is waterproof up to an extent. And it just takes one 16340 battery with the negative end facing the lens of the laser and the positive end facing the button. So once you get that laser screwed back together, it should turn on, and I'm going to take a guess and say that these batteries are probably charged somewhat beforehand, so I should be able to get the laser to turn on right now. And as you guys can see right there, it does ship with somewhat of a charge on the batteries, so you are able to test it out right out of the box. And you can see that that color is a little bit closer to the orange side. It definitely is still red, but there is a difference between 638 and 650, and I did a pretty interesting video that you might want to check out to see the difference. If you listen closely, there's just a little bit of rattling on the button. It's nothing extreme, but I do notice these little things, so I figured I'd point it out to you guys. And by turning the top of the laser, I am able to adjust the focus and make that dot larger or smaller, and you would want the smallest dot possible in order to do some burning. Now, one thing that this does not come with is laser safety glasses. I'll put some links down below in the description on where you guys can buy some. I am going to switch over now and show you guys what this laser looks like in some different lighting levels. So while messing around with the laser off camera for a couple of minutes, I discovered it actually has 3 different modes, and this is a surprise to me because it wasn't listed on the website or the instruction paper. It has a high power mode, a low power mode, and a strobe mode. So if you press the button all the way down, that turns it on and it starts in high power mode, and then if you just kind of press the button slightly, not all the way, the laser will switch to different modes. It'll switch to low power mode, then strobe mode, and then back to high power mode, and it will just cycle through all 3. So that was a pretty cool little surprise that I didn't realize. So when I do the LPM test, I will test the low power mode and the high power mode. So this is just another indoor shot, and you can see the beam pretty well. You can also see it's picking up those dust particles, and this is a distance of about 15 or 20 feet, and you can see that this dot is still about 2 to 3 inches wide, and that's with this laser being as focused in as I could get it. So it doesn't have the best beam divergence by any means. You can also see that there's a long horizontal line going through the beam, and the dot is supposed to be rectangular like that. It's something to do with the way the diode is made, but there is not supposed to be that long horizontal line going through it. So that indicates to me that right out of the box there's either some type of little hairline scratch or some dirt or dust particle on the lens. I'll take a look at that after I complete this video, but I did just want to point that out to you guys. So moving on to an outdoor setting in the middle of the day, that red dot is very visible, the beam isn't visible, but another thing you're going to notice is that that divergence is very poor at long distances. Those rocks are, it's tough to say, but at least 100 feet away, probably closer to 200 feet away, and that dot is now spread over probably over a foot, and that's as focused in as I could get it. So not the best beam divergence on this one by any means. That dot and that beam do not stay very tight at any distance. Moving on to the last setting, which is going to be nighttime, the beam is very visible, the dot is very bright. You still have the issues with divergence, and one other thing I'm noticing now that I can see that beam very visibly is that it's a bit crooked too. It's not perfectly aligned with the laser, and I hope you guys can notice this on the camera. The host of the laser is going straight and the beam is veering off to the left right now, and then if I spin the laser around I can make it the opposite way with the beam going off to the right. So this beam is not perfectly centered, it's skewed to one side, which is just, I mean, there's no other word for it but poor craftsmanship. I mean, you got to put more effort into that. That's one of, in my opinion, that's one of the most critical parts of a laser, is having the beam centered perfectly so that the laser aims to the correct place. But anyways, I'll talk a little bit about that more in the reviewing aspect of this, but I'm going to move on to do the LPM test right now, and I'm going to start with the low power mode. Now, Banggood did advertise this as 1 power, and it was 1 watt is what it was advertised at. It didn't even mention a low power mode, so I'm kind of interested to see what this will come up with. And after a little bit of time here, it looks like, even though it went blurry, you guys might not be able to see it too well, it came up with a reading of about 285 milliwatts. So I'm going to move on to testing the high power mode now. And I am going to fast forward this for you guys so you don't have to wait the entire duration of around, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds or so, but it looks like this one's getting a peak reading of around 660 milliwatts before it starts to decline, and I noticed it held its steady power for around, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 seconds, and then it started to dip down. As you can see, the LPM numbers are going down, and the laser is not putting out a constant power. So I'm going to do a second test right now and see if it happens again. So the second test brings us to around 610 milliwatts, and you're going to see it kind of drop in a second because I accidentally moved the laser off of the little sensor pad. But when I get it back on there, you will see it declining again and starting to drop slowly, so it isn't putting out that constant power that it should be and holding one power rating. Now, for the actual strength of the high power mode, I'm going to cut it in the middle here and say somewhere around 630 milliwatts, which is definitely pretty far off from the advertised strength of 1 watt. Now with this specific LPM, I have noticed a margin of error with other lasers and this one of maybe around 30 milliwatts, give or take, but that still puts them nowhere near the advertised power of 1 watt. So definitely under spec on this one, and it's only running about 63% of what the advertised power is supposed to be. But I'm going to move on to the burn test now, and as I stated before, make sure you wear laser safety glasses. That is required, that is not optional. I'll put some links to some down below in the video description. And what I just started off right there with was a couple of red top matches, just your standard matches you would pick up at the grocery store. And this laser already is focused into a focal point, which is maybe about 5 or 6 inches away from the end of the laser. That's where the beam is at its thinnest and where I'm going to be able to do the best burning. Next up, I'm going to do a little strip of black electric tape to see if I can cut through it. Now, right below my burning area is a sink full of water, and my laser is shining at a stone so that it does not burn a hole in my wall. And you can see I was able to cut through that pretty easily. Next up, I'm going to try a little piece of cardboard here from a mini wheats box. And I probably won't be able to burn the front side too well because it has like a somewhat reflective waxy coating on it, so I'll switch to the back side, which is pretty much just normal cardboard. And you can see some smoke coming off of the edges there. I usually like to start at the edges where it's a little bit thinner to start a fire, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get a fire going. It looks like I'm just going to be able to do some little black etch marks along the cardboard. And to speed things up a bit, this was about the extent of the amount of damage I was able to do to the cardboard. I am now going to do a green balloon, and I'm going to try to just drop it through the focal point here. And that didn't really work out that well. The balloon was probably moving too fast, but if you hold it still, it'll just pop it instantly. So that's going to wrap up the burn test. I'm now going to move on to the reviewing aspect of this, and I have really mixed feelings about this laser. On one hand, I thought the quality as far as the metal construction goes was pretty nice, and I like that everything was kind of branded and it wasn't just no-name generic Chinese branding that they usually do. And I like the packaging. I like the laser output itself wasn't even bad. I mean, 630 milliwatts of 638 nanometer red is pretty okay for the price of $90, and to be honest, I would probably spend $90 for a solid metal laser like this at 630 milliwatts of this color. But because it was falsely advertised as 1 watt, and because it has some quality issues like the poor beam divergence and the crooked beam, it leaves something to be desired, really. And these are kind of issues that almost seem like they could be an easy fix, and this laser could really have potential if they just made it a little better, if they constructed it a little better and put some more time into it to make that beam a bit better. Then I could really see this being a laser that's worth the money. But they'd also have to go and advertise it at its actual output, and they really got to work on the advertising too, because they got to list that this thing has 3 modes, and they got to give you an instruction paper that is specific to this laser and not just every laser they sell. So I feel like this laser really has the potential to be something good, and if they just advertise it correctly and make it a little better, it really could be something good. But for now, because of those issues with the beam and because of the falsely advertised power output, I can really only give this a maybe 6.5 out of 10 as far as my rating goes. And that rating is right on point with the power output, because the power output was 630 milliwatts out of 1000 milliwatts that it was supposed to be. So that rating makes a lot of sense. And I'll put links down below if you want to try this laser for yourself. I really hope they do take this constructive criticism and work upon it, because I do think that there's something there for a good quality product for the price. If you guys found this review helpful in any way at all, hit that like button down below. And if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button for more laser reviews just like this one. And as always guys, thank you for watching from XM360.